But even more exciting is we finally have a Big Ten bracket here, which is why we waited until last on the Big Ten, because who was still playing? I can't remember.
So Rutgers and Northwestern were still playing, and then I believe it was Minnesota and Wisconsin as the two late games there.
Yep. So Wednesday at the Big Ten tournament, we get Ohio State and Wisconsin. Critical matchup for Brice Sensabaugh. Will really, really need to showcase himself well there. And if they can win that matchup, and it'll be basically a toss-up against Wisconsin. They'll get Iowa, and that will be an immediate matchup that NBA scouts will want to get to, because it'll be Kris Murray against Brice Sensabaugh, two potential top 20 picks. Two guys that are big, physical, 6'6" to 6'8", wings that can shoot, that can be high-level shot makers in some way. Really, really exciting set of tournament games there.
Yeah, that first round is going to be big for Ohio State, because Wisconsin, I mean, they're a good team. The Big Ten is filled with a lot of good teams in here, and Sensabaugh is going to have to get past a tough first round matchup in order to give scouts what they really want, which is the game against Iowa. Iowa is just one of the more bipolar teams that you'll find. Like some games where their offense is so potent and powerful that they can't lose to anybody. They can come from 11 down with 30 seconds to go and force a game to overtime against Michigan State, or they can lay an egg and do pretty much nothing against Northwestern a week later. So many different ways that matchup could go in the second round with Ohio State. That's the thing about this Big Ten tournament. There is almost no separation from like 2 to 8, 2 to 9 in terms of just their team performance here. Like Northwestern being on that 2 line, no one saw that coming into the season. They're experienced and mature, but this is going to be very matchup driven and very much like throw the bracket out the window. Just expect chaos this entire week, because anybody can beat anybody. To take that even further, that first round, Ohio State, like if they get hot and how bipolar Iowa is, maybe Ohio State ends up moving on to Friday. Nebraska has won 4 of their last 5 and is starting to score the basketball. It's a good matchup with them in the second round against Maryland, who also a very like hot or cold type of team in the way that they've been producing this year. We could see 2 teams from Wednesday make a push into that Friday and that third round. This is going to be just chaos across the board. Absolute chaos.
It's exactly right. And honestly, like, I'm not terribly disappointed with how that bracket ended up for Ohio State. Like, Iowa is a team that I think that, they can cause problems against. Michigan State. Ohio State just played them really tight over the weekend or during the week. I can't remember which one it was. All of these games and days blend together. The problem is they're going to play Purdue, and Purdue just will absolutely, I think, slice them at the end of the day. Basically from the second half of their first matchup onward, it's been pretty ugly. The other big matchup here that I'm looking forward to is Rutgers, Michigan. Michigan has 2 guys in Jett Howard and Kobe Buffkin that I think have a chance to be first round picks. And Rutgers is a team that will cause them problems on defense. Like, Rutgers is one of the absolute top 5 defenses in college basketball. Now, these 2 teams just played last Thursday, not the most recent Thursday. And Kobe Buffkin did really well in that matchup. I think if he shows again that he can play well against Rutgers and that tough defense, it will continue to solidify him in a pretty real way as a potential first round pick. This Michigan team just has been terrible in close games and just has really, really struggled, it feels like, to take advantage fully of the talent that they have. Does that seem fair to you?
I mean, in some regard, I think Juwan Howard does a decent job of laying their offense out. Like, they play through Hunter Dickinson on the inside, and there are moments when he seems unstoppable one-on-one. He's a good passer when they draw double teams, and he does a good job of keeping Kobe Buffkin on the right side of the floor and Jett Howard on the left, so that when they come off of dribble handoffs or actions, they're attacking with their strong hand towards the middle. But Rutgers has so many good perimeter defenders that they can throw at you. Like, Paul Mulcahy and Caleb McConnell are going to be problems for Jett Howard and Kobe Buffkin to try to create against. That's a super, super fun first round matchup. Rutgers not playing their best basketball of late. Like, they've started to slide a little bit more, which is disappointing to see. But the Amori and Dickinson matchup on the inside is going to be a fun one as well.
Yeah.
Those two teams are just the way that they match up with each other. Michigan being much more offensive minded, Rutgers more defensive minded, going to be super fun.
So Kobe Buffkin, over the course of their last 12 games, he's playing 36 minutes a night. He's averaging 16 points, 5.5 rebounds, 2.6 assists per game, while shooting 50% from the field, 43% from three, 83% from the line. Has just been absolutely terrific in those games, and really, 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 I think looks like a potential first round pick in this upcoming draft. I've talked to a number of scouts now that have asked me the question, do you think that Kobe Buffkin is a better prospect than Jett Howard? And I think that is a real conversation worth having at this point.
Yes,
so
it is.
Penn State, Illinois will be fun. Penn State has a couple of guys in Seth Lundy and Jalen Pickett that are quite good college players as older upper-class seniors. Illinois has Terrence Shannon, who has been a bit disappointing throughout the second half of the season after such a hot start. Maryland has a couple of guys like Akeem Hart that's pretty interesting. And, Dante Scott didn't really ever take that next step. And, they could at least be a team that could cause Indiana problems maybe in that Friday quarterfinal set of matchups. But, then we get Indiana with Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis, both of whom are playing terrific basketball. Jalen Hood-Schifino still a little bit hot cold, but 6'5" to 6'6" point guard can really get to the mid range and knock down shots. Terrific defender, good passer, playmaker. Outside of Brice Sensabaugh, I would say Brice Sensabaugh, Jett Howard, and Jalen Hood-Schifino are your three potential first round picks outside of Kobe Buffkin in this group.
Yeah, and Chris Murray at Iowa.
Oh, and Chris Murray too. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Ten does have a lot of good prospects in that like 10 to 25 range, where there's 5 or 6 guys that are going to sort themselves out there. I don't know if it's going to be as indicative for them to play incredibly well in March. I think it's helpful for every prospect, but I think it's going to be much more about what NBA teams look for in terms of fit for the team drafting. That's going to be the difference between some of them. Chris Murray being an older prospect, Jett Howard being much more of a shooter, Brice Sensabaugh having a little bit more scoring upside, Hood-Schifino being a big lead guard. Like it's going to be much more about fit than it is necessarily about creating separation or differentiation amongst each other.
Yeah, and Northwestern is just a really solid team.
Great team.
Michigan State, tough rebound. Malik Hall is a guy that scouts will ask me about occasionally and ask me what I think of him. Really good backcourt with AJ Hogard and Tyson Walker. Not a team that has a ton of like super high level prospects necessarily at this point. And then Purdue has Zach Edey, and Zach Edey is arguably the most dominant force in college basketball, along with Trace Jackson Davis on the other side of the bracket. That's what I'm hoping we end up with. I would like a Purdue Indiana grudge match, rivalry match, all of it for this Big Ten tournament title. That's a lie. I want Ohio State to go to the NCAA tournament. So I want Ohio State to win freaking like 5 straight games and do this. But outside of that, I would like Indiana and Purdue.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 games have been such thrillers to watch from a college basketball standpoint. I think we learn a lot about Trace Jackson Davis every time we see him go up against the Boilermakers. And that's going to be an interesting one for scouts to take in. Like Zach Edey is college basketball's Boban Marjanovic. So if you enjoy watching somebody just dominate on the blocks one-on-one or demand double teams, like sure, tune into Purdue. They have immaculate offensive spacing and things like that. But this is going to be a really bloodbath of a week for the Big Ten in terms of not just who wins these games, but there's so much on the line in terms of seeding and berths to March Madness that we may see some really fun basketball.